So many Americans are suffering with conditions like paralysis and think it's permanent. Well, Haley is here today to talk about her son, whose story changed and he no longer has this condition. So his name's Avery. When he was 8 years old, he had a virus, and after that virus developed an autoimmune condition that rendered him paralyzed. And so the family brought him to all these hospitals, high level doctors. They all said it was permanent and there was no reversing it. So they started to think, oh my goodness, where is he going to be in his life? This totally changed his life path. Couldn't do all the things he wanted to do. And all of a sudden, they're thinking about a lifelong condition that's not going to go away. And so luckily they heard about us. They brought him over to us. We were able to find hidden neurological weaknesses and we fixed him. And so Haley's here today to share the full story from start to finish of Avery's journey and the family's journey throughout the process. I'm so excited to have her here. So the question you're probably asking yourself right now is, how do I fit into this conversation? Well, that's why I'm here. I'm here to teach you about the body and how it works. And if you're somebody with this type of condition, we're going to have references, resources for you at the bottom that you'll be able to see and click on that'll be able to help you. Okay, so there was obviously a progression of sicknesses, of things you knew were not right with your 8-year-old. Well, it turned into 8. But when did you really see something that was serious? Like when you knew something, instead of just being like things that maybe you thought were he could grow out of, like some parents would say, right? If you do the right things. But there was a point, there had to be a point where you were like, this is some serious stuff that I got to get care. When was that point?
I think it was probably about 3 weeks after his surgery. At that point, I was like, okay, he had the surgery, he should be better, and he was actually worse. And so he was put on, I ended up bringing him back to his pediatrician because he was actually declining from the surgery. He was still blowing a ton of green stuff from the surgery. He was staying with a rash around his face. He had tantrums that it was hard for my kids to see because he had almost like I would kind of describe it as like, in a way it seemed kind of like epilepsy, but when when people have seizures, it lasts a few seconds to a minute. His would last like 20 to 30 minutes where it's like he didn't know where he was. He wasn't the same kid. He couldn't like snap out of it. And the pediatrician kept saying, oh, it's just anxiety. We need to put him on an anxiety medication. And he ended up having staph after the surgery. So that pretty much kind of is where like all the red flags started coming to me, and I was like, he's supposed to be better. We did this surgery. He's actually worse. He was having these major fits and meltdowns. So it's like at some points we didn't even really leave the house because things would set him off, and he was never that type of kid. He was the kid who was driving a four-wheeler, playing outside, going to the cousins' houses. He loved school. At this point, he hated school. He didn't want to go to school. And I think it had a lot to do with he was just trying to survive every day. And he was 7, so he didn't know how to explain. Like, I would try to talk to him, and he couldn't explain how he was feeling. He was just annoyed all the time. And so at that point, when he ended up having staph, he was put on a medication. And 10 days after he started Bactrim, he started complaining of like fuzzy. He would tell me his eyes were fuzzy and blurry. He ended up waking up that night and he had hives all over his body from head to toe. And he wouldn't stop scratching. He was crying because he just didn't feel good. So that was kind of the start of everything. And then the next day I took him back to the pediatrician, and I just kept insisting that he either run tests or like help us to figure out what was wrong, because he was a completely different kid. And I just never really got answers. He told me it wasn't I asked him if it was an allergic reaction to the Bactrim or the anxiety medication, and he kept insisting that it wasn't, just to give him a cortisone cream. But it was, at this point, it was covering his entire body. So he had that for about a week. So that's kind of like the point where I knew like something was just very different.
And then from that point forward, when did it go to where he wasn't mobile anymore, where he couldn't walk?
So he had Christmas night is when the hives came out, and it lasted about a week. We just did cortisone cream and tried a veno bath, like just trying to help him tolerate his body itched everywhere. And so January 7th, he came with us to the daycare that we owned, and he helped us move and clean things in the classrooms, and he was fine all day. He helped. He's a kid who helps build things. He's just a little helper, and he worked all day with us. And that evening, I told him it was time to bathe, and he told me he couldn't walk because his legs hurt. And I thought he's the baby, so I thought, he's just, trying to get my attention. And so he wouldn't walk to the bathroom to go and bathe. So I ended up carrying him to the bathroom, just thinking he's tired, he's exhausted from the day. At this point, the hives were completely gone. He didn't have any hives. He just complained of being sore and tired. He was really, really tired. And so that evening, I had to even help bathe him, which looking back, he's very independent. So that was kind of odd. That evening, my husband was at the camp, so he slept in the room with me because he just said he didn't feel good. He didn't feel right, is how he would say it. And so the next morning, we got dressed to go to church, and he wouldn't get out the bed. I tried to have him stand up. He couldn't stand. At that point, he started having pain to just like touch his lower extremities. I could press on them, but like I couldn't like lift his leg. He would start crying in pain. It was like night and day. He was fine the afternoon before, and he wakes up and cannot walk.
Wow. I can't even, I mean, as a parent, my wife and I have 3 kids, and I can't even imagine the pain that you felt from seeing and witnessing that. And from that moment, like, how bad did things get? I mean, when did the wheelchair happen?
So that morning, it was January 8th. It was my oldest son's birthday, so I'll always kind of remember that date. But my husband got home from the camp, and we had to dress him and carry him to the car.
Oh my God.
And I remember walking into church that morning, Drew put him on his back and like carried him into church on his back. And Avery is the type of kid, out of all 3 kids, he doesn't like any attention on him. So it was very hard for him too, because like people were like looking at us and like, he's 7, why are you carrying him? And at this point, we had ended up getting a wheelchair from a local place in Lafayette, because my husband had to go back to work, and I couldn't carry him everywhere. So that was like hard for our family, because now we were loading and unloading a wheelchair everywhere we went.
How much did he weigh at this point?
He was real tiny, especially after the surgery. He had lost a lot of weight because he wasn't eating. I don't know his weight exactly, but he was tiny, but he was still, he was heavy to move around.
Yeah. And
I could move him like in the house. I could move him on my own, but to bring him, like if we had to walk into a store, like I couldn't carry him. He couldn't fit in a basket, so at that point, and he also had to go back to school, which was another big stress for him, going back to school. So we got the wheelchair, and so my older 2 kids at this point are really we're just like, what's really happening, because we're loading and unloading a wheelchair. He can't, he had to wear sweatpants a lot because he couldn't stand up to pull up his clothes to use the restroom. We had to put him on, he couldn't even stand to urinate.
Oh my goodness.
At that point, we couldn't touch his legs at all. I mean, he was swelling his joints. Then it was like moving to his joints, his wrist, his knees were swelling. So at that point, the pediatrician was kind of like, at first he said it joking, but then it was several comments of, you need to get up and walk, your parents have work. So he
didn't believe him?
He didn't believe him at all. And that's where for me, that's where like my view and everything completely changed. Yes, so I think we were home for 2 maybe a week or two, and he didn't show any improvement at all. It actually got worse. He was having those fits that I call them
Yep.
more often every night, and so
Still in the wheelchair.
still in the wheelchair. At this point, he had gained a ton of weight.
Were there any times, for maybe viewers that are watching that are skeptical, were there any times that he would just, would you find him like walking, for instance, when you
No.
weren't looking, you know?
No.
Just because, I mean, maybe some people watching out there are probably thinking, oh, maybe it was in the kid's head, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so there you would double, triple check, I'm assuming, as a parent, that's what I would do. If a pediatrician was telling me, hey, it's in his head, well, then I would probably like sneak up on him and see if he was like secretly walking around
Yeah.
normal. But did you have any of those episodes?
No, I mean, he basically went to school and got home and he sat in the wheelchair. No, I never,
You never saw improvement.
nothing. I mean, he would pick up, like at one point, we also had to rent a seat for the bathtub to be able to put him from the wheelchair into our bathtub. Because he was getting heavy at that point. And if my husband wasn't home, I couldn't lift him by myself. So we would lift him onto this seat to put him into our tub. And he would take, like, some nights. And I think that's, even now, people, like, in the community will question me. Like, so wait, what did he do? Like, how is he walking again? But going through all that, people just thought, oh, he just doesn't want to walk. But they didn't see the things that were going on at home.
Right.
Like, they weren't aware of the fits and the meltdowns. Like, at some points, I was like, is he going crazy? Like, he would just scream.
He was in excruciating pain.
He was in excruciating pain all the time. Mainly, and it's weird, though, it was mainly at night. Like, I don't know if it was the stress level from the day. It was always in the evening. He had excruciating pain. He had a bunk bed at the time, and he had to end up sleeping in our bedroom because we couldn't even get him into his bed.
Jeez.
And so he would cry for, like in the beginning, he would cry for almost 2 hours every night in pain. And I know because we would pray the rosary with him, the only thing we could touch his legs with was a friend had given us some St. Joseph's oil. So we would pray the St. Joseph's novena and rub oil on his legs every night. And it was normally like we would pray 3 rosaries until he would fall asleep. So that was like an hour and a half, 2 hours every night. And then he never ever once tried to stand up. Like I would try to encourage him, like when I'd go to take him out the bed, why don't you try to scoot yourself out the bed? He couldn't. He had no strength in his legs at all. He couldn't. We couldn't touch, like, to move him from the bed to the wheelchair, from the wheelchair to the tub. We couldn't. I could barely touch his legs to pick them up at all. He would scream and cry in pain.
So ultimately, the Texas Children's Hospital diagnosed him with a condition?
Yes, it was serum sickness is what they told us.
But then, didn't they diagnose him with AMPS?
Yes, so when we left Texas Children the first time and went home,
They said go home 3 weeks, he's going to get
and he's
better.
he's gonna be fine, he's gonna be walking.
And you went back, and you're
And
like,
so
he's not walking. I need some answers.
Yes, we ended up seeing the pediatrician again.
Local?
The same pediatrician, because at that point I couldn't switch doctors. No one wanted to take him
As a pediatrician, you
as a patient.
Oh my
when I would
gosh.
call to say, like, hey,
What a
this is what's going
nightmare. That's
on.
just a nightmare.
No one wanted to see him. And that evening, a friend of a friend called me and told me about your place.
So cool.
Yeah. I mean, we had gone through,
What did your friend tell you?
she told me that so it was a friend of mine. Her mom's a hairstylist, and her mom was talking about Avery's story in the hair salon. And
That's where all good things happen in the hair salon, right?
and so she was doing her hair, and the girl in the next chair said, oh my gosh, my son went through the same thing years ago. And his was similar to Avery. I believe he had, maybe it was the flu vaccine, or he had the flu, something with the flu. And he, very similar, didn't walk, I believe, for like 3 months or 5 months. Excruciating pain all the time. She went to multiple hospitals, several doctors, local and out of state. And I think he was diagnosed with the same thing, if I'm not mistaken, AMPS. And so I immediately knew that it was like a miracle that that story was told, and she contacted us because I just didn't feel like.
Did she come here too?
Yes, so she
And her son got 100% better?
yes,
That's
I
how
think he walked after it wasn't very long, but he did the same type of treatment. So it was because of her that we found your place, and you're only 20 minutes from where we live.
Crazy.
Yeah. So we ended up
And you had never heard of us before?
never heard of the Nerve Health Institute.
Wow. And at this point, you have how much money into your
A lot.
son? I mean, there's no telling. It's got to be hundreds of thousands of dollars by the time insurance and copays and
Yes.
all the
And then
stuff.
we missed a lot of work to stay home, and
Right.
he missed a lot of school. We ended up taking him out of school and homeschooling him just from the stress of everything. And so when we drove home that evening, I went onto your website and booked an appointment, submitted, I don't even know the steps to it. It's been a while, but I went through the website, and I believe the next week y'all called me.
I'll never forget.
Yeah.
First day you got him here, and really couldn't get him out of the car.
Yeah.
So I had to go look at him and work on him in the car. And we did that probably several times because poor little guy, he was so damaged.
He was so
Traumatized, right? He thought we were going to walk into this office and we're going to do needles and we're going to put him in a big scan or draw blood or some of those things, when we're we do the reverse of that. And so from your perspective, because obviously I could get into all the geekiness of what we do here, which is so awesome. We help the body heal itself, which you got this amazing God-made body. It's completely designed to heal itself. And at some point, your 8-year-old just lost the ability to heal and had these progressive conditions that were just progressively getting worse. And you want to think of it, you have 30 trillion cells, and those cells, the more groups of those cells that get unhealthy, they can get a virus. They can get an autoimmune condition. They can get all these different conditions. And it just sounds like in his case, now that we kind of sat down and talked about it, that just condition upon condition upon condition upon condition just kept to the point where he might have died if you'd have kept going, right? I mean, it just, that's how bad this was progressing. So from your standpoint, what did you experience? How did you experience coming here? What was the experience here versus all the other experiences you had? How was it different?
I remember the first.
It's okay. It's okay to get emotional.
I remember.
He's such a cool guy, by the way. I love him so much. He's amazing.
He's a handful. I just remember feeling so much peace.
And the peace came from results. Finally, somebody could understand what he had and then how to fix him.
And just walking in here.
It's okay.
So peaceful, and I just felt heard as a parent.
Somebody finally listened. Somebody finally understood.
And didn't think he was faking.
Yes. From our perspective, we were able to get into his brain. And I want to bring this back up. When you said, I think one of the big tests you thought was going to give you some answers was a full body MRI, right? So you're going to see the nerves and you're going to see what's not right. Is there a tumor poking on something? Well, they told you that's normal, right? But what an MRI doesn't show you, it doesn't show you the energy flowing from your brain through a nerve into a cell. Because every cell in your body is wired to your brain. Is that wild? Mm-hmm. So what we do here, we were able to figure out where his brain was disconnected to various cell groups, and we methodically, very scientifically started reconnecting his brain and got these cells to get healthier. And it was the most beautiful thing to witness, where you could literally watch his little face start to light up, like he went from being in the car to coming in the office and smiling, and you could see him come back to life, literally. And from my standpoint, was that what you experienced?
Yes, very. I mean, he was like for over 6 months, he was like he wasn't the same kid, you know? So to have him come here and not be in pain, and he trusted you so much, and the nurses,
And
Lily.
he didn't.
At first he didn't.
At first he didn't.
He was very difficult. He had been through so much.
But when we started to get him results,
Yes.
it was
and when
like
he
somebody
felt comfortable, and I think as he came, he felt the healing process, and it's like he had life back into him, and he trusted y'all, and everything that you did to him never hurt him. That was the biggest thing. It was very peaceful, and he was not in he was still in pain in the beginning. Like I remember you could barely touch him when you first started. But as we came through and did all the sessions, people would say, like in the community, even family members would say like, well, what are y'all doing now? That was really hard.
connecting the brain.
Yeah.
Right.
Like what are y'all doing? You're not doing physical therapy anymore. Everything was physical therapy, or people just didn't understand.
Yes.
And for me, it was very clear. Like I felt so much peace when I came into the clinic. I felt like I was heard. It was so much less stressful for us because I was on like pins and needles at every hospital we went to.
The big thing is you just weren't getting results.
Yeah.
But then when you started here, anybody could see the result. Everybody in the community started seeing the results. I will never forget the first time he stood up and walked.
I know. That was a big moment.
It's one of the coolest moments of my life. I mean, I've witnessed it so many times in this amazing practice, but that truthfully, I will never forget it. I will never forget the look on my staff members' faces with him walking out of the office, walking down the hall, the jaws on the floor, and the more important part was his little face.
Yeah.
He was just lit up. Like you could see almost, how could we describe it? Like bars on a Wi-Fi. You could see, like when he first started, I don't even think he had a bar on the Wi-Fi, and then you could see 4 bars come back. And
I think too, like coming here, like all the other places we went to, they just focused on he wasn't walking. And for me as a mom, it was more than just not walking. And even people in the community didn't understand. Like they just saw, oh, he's in a wheelchair, he can't walk. Yeah. But it was his behavior, his emotions, his sleep, his coloring. Like he stayed red all the time. He stayed puffy and swollen. And it wasn't like once we came here, everything that he did, I saw daily. I mean, I think in the beginning we were coming 3 times a week for 2 hours. And people would say, well, he's still not walking. And I'm like, but y'all don't see the little bits of progress that, like now he can lift his foot off the floor. He can swing his leg, the little, on the wheelchair. Like he could swing his foot by himself to pick it up. He could swing his leg to get into the bathtub.
So cool.
It was little steps of progress every day after every session. He was sleeping better. He was starting to eat different food. He had stopped eating. Like it wasn't just not walking. So that everything that you've done here, like overall fixed a whole bunch of issues that he was having. It wasn't just not walking, I'm
going to give credit to God in this because I didn't design this amazing body, but it's designed to heal itself.
I do remember, as we were talking, I remember, so we had gone to Texas Children the beginning of January, and then they said he would have been walking after 3 weeks. Then we had a second visit, and when we got discharged, we had a follow-up 3 weeks after. So it was around like March 1st, I believe.
After you were seeing us?
After I think we were seeing you for like 2 weeks. And so I kept the appointment in Texas Children. I really, to this day, I don't know why. Because I knew when we got here, I felt the peace, and I like everything you did.
Mom's intuition.
I just knew we were in the right place. But I kept the appointment. I don't even know why I kept the appointment in Texas, but we went back for the follow-up, and we met again with the head neurologist there at Texas Children, and at this point he's still in a wheelchair, which we were told again that he was going to be walking. And I said, he's still like, he walked in and he was like, how's he doing? And I said, well, he's still in the wheelchair. And it took him a while to even like speak to us, because I don't think he knew what to tell us. And I said, I'm just concerned because this is our second go around and he's still in the wheelchair. And what can we do next? Like, he didn't know that we were coming here. And he said, well, after all the tests and reviewing all his charts, and, I think it's probably a nerve issue.
You think?
And I remember looking at, because I had told Drew, my husband, I said, I'm not bringing it up. I want to see what he's going to tell us now. This is our second go around. And I said, oh, okay, well, great. What can you do for us if it's a nerve issue? And he told me there's really nothing we can do at this point.
Wow. And this is one of the best neurologists in the country.
We have no type of treatment to help any nerve issues other than gabapentin. And I said, well, that's not an option for us.
Wow.
And so when we left there, I knew, I just knew we had made the right decision to be here.
If this podcast spoke to you, or if you feel like you have family members or friends that have these types of conditions that could benefit from this particular technology, then all you need to do is become a Body Chargers member or tell them about Body Chargers. Remember, it's our community that I created to help people at home with the best technologies in the world to be able to help you to self-heal your body at home and maximize your self-healing. So go to Body Chargers, become a member. That's the easiest way to get this done. And we look forward to serving you and your family. Also, if you want a higher level of care, we have the Nerve Health Institute you can always come to. That's our clinic where we have higher level services here to be able to help you. So I hope you enjoy, and we look forward to serving you and your family, and look forward to our next podcast.